I am joined now by a member of one of the committees that was scheduled, may still be scheduled, to interview the former special counsel, Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee, a member of the Judiciary Committee, and Caroline Frederickson is president of the American Constitution Society for Law and Policy and the author of The Democracy Fix. Caroline testified today before the House Judiciary Committee in a hearing about a presidential misconduct. Thank you both for joining us. Congressman, let me start with you, and let me just see if we can get some news out of you. When is Robert Mueller going to testify before your committee?
Well, that's still being negotiated by the committee and committee counsel, so we don't really know, but I suspect he will testify, and I would guess the 24th, but that's all up in the air.
Is this reporting from the Washington Post correct that it was Mueller who came to the committee and said perhaps a delay would be in order here? He was the one who suggested this?
I don't know that for a fact. I just know that they had negotiations, and part of it was to have more time for the Judiciary Committee so that we could operate as we normally do, with every member having an opportunity to participate and ask questions, which the Republicans as well as the Democrats sought, and I think that was fair. Originally, it was based on the Intelligence Committee wanting 2 hours, which covered 5 minutes for all of their members, but didn't take into consideration the judiciary, and it might have just followed through the cracks.
Right. So originally, this looked like it would be 2 hours for each committee. That would be for next week if it goes as scheduled. If it goes, say, a week later, how much time would you have?
I don't know. That's being negotiated. I would to hope it would be enough for at least 3 hours, maybe 4, but it's up to Mr. Mueller and his folks and the committee.
Okay. Caroline Frederickson, let me ask you about just the expectations for this. And I'm curious because we've seen and we've heard from Robert Mueller in public for the past 2.5 years, basically at that press conference. Now, a couple months ago, I say press conference, he didn't take questions. He talked for about 10 minutes. I think the impression he left on everybody, measured, very precise in what he was willing to say and what he was not willing to say. Whether it's 2 hours in front of these committees or whether it's a more expansive questioning, is there any reason to believe he's going to be any more expansive than he's willing to say publicly?
Well, I doubt that very much, but there are simply reading from his own report in his own voice, I think, would be incredibly forceful for the American public. I mean, we all have to be honest. Few people have read the report. Not very many people even have read the summaries that were released. But there is incredible content in there, very disturbing findings about misconduct by the president and by his campaign and his associates, that having Mr. Mueller, with the reputation that he has, with his measured delivery, with his history of public service, his military service, just telling people what happened, I think will have an enormous impact on how much people understand about what has really occurred.
Well, Congressman, let me ask you about that, because we put the poll number up there. This is from a couple days ago, the ABC Washington Post poll. 37% say impeachment, go ahead. 59% of Americans say no, don't do impeachment. If you have Mueller, if you hear from Robert Mueller and those numbers don't change, is that the end of it in terms of the push for impeachment?
No, not at all. You know, when they started looking at Nixon, it was about 19% were for impeachment. Mueller will be very important in his words and to affirm and to remind the American people that what was in that report is that there were over 100 contacts with the Russians, and the Trump campaign did not refuse them. They sought them, they called for them, and that there were many instances of obstruction of justice, and that Mueller could not say the president didn't violate the law. And he said the only reason he didn't indict him, or one of the reasons, but it's really the only reason, was because of the Office of Legal Counsel's determination that they couldn't legally indict a president. Otherwise, he would have been indicted, and he would have been like individual in New York and been with Michael Cohen up the river in New York. We need the direct evidence, the people we've subpoenaed, the folks that paid off Stormy Daniels and helped do that and bought the story of Miss August, the people who were asked to to get Mueller to resign, to ask Sessions to unrecuse himself, to ask McGahn to put out a false paper trail, and to lie about the president asking him to fire Mueller. Those are obstruction of justice charges.
I think what I'm getting at is this, though. Between the polling we put up at 37-59, I hear the case you're making right there. I've heard you, and I've heard other Democrats make that case. Here we sit now well into July, and those are the numbers on impeachment. You've got Mueller potentially appearing, let's say maybe it's the 24th. As soon as he finishes, then Congress is supposed to go on a recess basically till the end of the summer. So you're laying out all these other things you need. Between those poll numbers that show the public's not there right now, that looming recess that's going to take you to Labor Day, going to take you into September, is the clock just running out here for folks like you who want...
Steve, is it possible for me to jump in here? Because I think we're sort of missing the bigger picture. I mean, impeachment's obviously something that Congress could be considering, but there is so much more at stake. And I was thinking about during your last section where Mr. Podhoretz mentioned the Access Hollywood tapes and how that didn't affect the election. Well, I'd also, if I recall, remember that was the very day that WikiLeaks dumped all of the emails that had been hacked by the Russians from Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. And so, we have to be concerned about our elections and the integrity of our elections, and Congress needs to get to the bottom of that. Whether it leads to impeachment or not, we still need to understand how to protect our elections.
All right, but quickly, though, Congressman, I just want to ask you, if you guys are going on recess for the rest of the summer, you just went through people you want to hear from. Does that run the clock out?
Well, first of all, there's subpoenas, and that's going to start a court process. I don't expect that the Trump team will not try to stop each and every one of these people, even Corey Lewandowski, who was not a part of the administration, and find every way to stop us. And so I don't think it'll happen soon. But the committee has talked about meeting in August, having hearings in August, and continue our work in August. We're not going to stop because of the recess. We're going to continue to try to pursue the truth on behalf of the American people. That's our duty as the Judiciary Committee of the United States Congress under Article 1.
All right, Congressman Steve Cohen from Tennessee, Caroline Frederickson, thank you both for being with us.